Hello everyone, my name is Asmogan and I welcome you back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing a mighty chapter known as the Crimson Moons. This chapter has been authored by the fantastic Vadan Drumist, and I thank him for his patience and the long-term production lag on this, and I can only ask for forgiveness for the vast delays. Now, let us begin. Inquisitor Igiel's Log Entry, 2nd edition. What follows is a long-form, detailed account of the Crimson Moons, chapter of Astartes, of whom I have had the distinct pleasure to observe over the past few months. The Crimson Moons are a chapter of Iron Warrior ancestry, though I must note that I do not consider this a major issue in my report. The chapter has reflected its staunch loyalty to the Imperium during my time here, and I believe in my ability to recognize the stench of heresy where it lies. Therefore, I continue with the report. These mighty warriors were forged by the Imperium to fight alongside another of the Space Marine chapters, known as the Bloody Reavers, to purge chaos from their assigned sector of space. However, corruption befell the Bloody Reavers, and it was the duty of the Moons to cleave the cyst from what the Reavers had once been, as to purify them into the Emperor's light once more. This corruption had come from the hands of a demon prince, who had been at the heart of the dark forces they had been fighting, and had tore into the minds of the Reavers slowly and methodically. If it had not been for the Moon's quick action to purge these Reavers who had fallen, it could have spelled the end for them. Out of eternal gratitude, the uncorrupted Reavers declared themselves indebted to the Crimson Moons, and had rechristened themselves the Abyss Hunters. However, those of the corrupted Reavers who survived the Crimson Moon's interference and conquest of their world swore vengeance upon them and the Imperium. Thus was born a now centuries-old rivalry with the new Chaos Warband of Space Marines known as the Bloody Reavers, and the loyalist Astartes of the Crimson Moons. These two once allied cousin chapters fought on many occasions in vicious, agonizing conflicts, one such occasion being unique enough that both would remember well amongst the thrall of altercations they had shared. This had been the battle waged aboard an Eldar craft world, where a three-way gauntlet ensued: the Eldar of the craft world, the Chaos Warband of the Bloody Reavers, and the Crimson Moons, all battling it out in a vicious dance of blood and bolter, during which the Crimson Moon's then chapter master had fallen, and their new chapter master to be, Frederick Potier, led his brothers off of the craft world safely. The most recent achievement in the chapter's history was uncovering the latest actions of and their efforts to spread chaos with the Imperium. The Crimson Moons passed this information to the Crimson Crusaders chapter, who in turn ensured it reached the Inquisitor attempting to purge of these heretical elements. I must note in my log that I request that the Ordo Hereticus notify me next time one of their ranks is in my vicinity. This report was a surprise to me when I was made aware of it. Anyway, I now move to detail observed habits and cultural practices enacted by the Moons, some of which I find fascinating even as I drone on in this report. First off, worthy of note, is the process in which neophytes for the chapter are selected. Most chapters on record usually choose the most worthy and loyal boys found on their homeworlds and select them as neophytes. However, the Moons, as has become more and more apparent to me, are not like other chapters of Space Marines. The Crimson Moons act as breeders of sorts, finding two gene seed compatible individuals upon their world who are accomplished as citizens and pair them up to produce a child. This child in turn will become one of the chapter's neophytes. A fascinating process to observe, I must say. The cold directness of the Battle Brothers as they formulate these pairs and later collect their offspring is truly a sight to behold. The Battle Brothers collect the offspring of these pairs at the virtual birth of the babes. The chapter librarian explained that the purpose of such an early indoctrination was to prevent any cultural contamination into the chapter's identity from the recruited neophytes, and to ensure the new neophytes as ideal as possible. These neophytes are raised by the chapter's serfs, and trained by former guardsmen at the age of 4 Terran years. After 4 to 6 Terran years of training and instruction, the neophytes undergo a series of brutal and lethal trials to prove their worthiness. They must survive the frigid wastes, come out the victor in a death arena against armed criminals while unarmed themselves, receive approval from the Adeptus Arbitus,
during an operation as part of the vanguard of an Underhive assault, and receive a perfect score on a written examination regarding military tactics, battle strategy, imperial history, and philosophy. If against all odds there is still an excess of neophytes, then those qualified are thrown into an arena bare skin to either kill or force their competition to surrender. This is done until the satisfactory number of needed candidates is achieved. Interestingly enough, the chapter seems to encourage its neophytes to work alongside normal human military, as much as possible. The librarian tells me that this is to make best use of them during their 10-year trials, and to ingrain a sense of respect and understanding in the burgeoning warriors. Truly, these Astartes are a fascinating bunch to behold, and to think I had thought them white scars upon my initial arrival. To further instill loyalty and empathy in the sons of Perturabo, they are taught philosophy centered around 15 virtues: ambition, determination, diligence, equality, gratitude, honesty, honor, humility, love, loyalty, passion, patience, resourcefulness, responsibility, selflessness, and valor. With these as a base, they hold a code of chivalry, and even if an Astartes may fail in some of these aspects, they are at least made to respect them. As such, like the Salamanders, they prioritize protecting humanity over destroying the enemy, though for the Crimson Moons it is more out of a sense of duty than altruism. They are also given pragmatic reasons for protecting humanity. They were born of it, reliant upon it, and the patron of the Astartes had decided they were worthy of protection as well. This would be a good time as any to note that the moons refer to the God Emperor of mankind as the Patron, a recent moniker. As many cultures in the Imperium refer to the God Emperor in unique ways, I will not flag it as a concern. Now on to the Crimson Moon's battle tactics. This and the bright white armor is where the White Scar's misconception comes from earlier in my report. The Crimson Moons are primarily a vehicle-heavy chapter, believing that to take the biggest guns into battle is the best option, and, after all, what has bigger weapons than those of which you drive? Therefore, their infantry are aided by scores of powerful vehicles and aircraft. So unlike the White Scars, theirs is primarily from a firepower perspective, as opposed to speed and logistical advantages, though I'm sure they benefit in that regard as well. Additionally, the chapter's librarian has explained to me that the pearl white color of their armor is meant to evoke the image of an apothecary to encourage acceptance in letting them take charge. A darker implication is the idea that those who would take glory risk death first, and it will be the Crimson Moons who will pick their scraps after the end. As for other aesthetical notes, their sergeants apply a garnet red trim or vinyl if they have completed their trial. Captains and those of even higher status switch to the red and white of their armor completely, supposedly giving them an advantage in negotiations and being easily recognizable to their own men. Though it makes them an easy target, I'll have to point that out. Terminators, on the other hand, are completely black with white trim and symbols upon their armor. A very straightforward design, but it did resemble Black Templars initially, but the justification has been made for it, I suppose. One last thing to note of the Crimson Moons is their gene seed flaws, as it appears all chapters have one in some form or another. For the Moons, their blood is both a blessing and a curse. They possess enhanced progenoids, but they have defective osmundulas. The question lies there on whether or not the loss of a second heart is as important as the ability to replace their fallen with new recruits sufficiently. Now I end this documentation of the Crimson Moons by listing off the basics and outline of the chapter as a whole. Let us begin the tedium. Chapter name: Crimson Moons. War cry: For the Patron. Founding: the 40th millennium. Primarch: Perturabo. Successors of the Silver Skulls. Successor chapters: none. Chapter numbers: indeterminate. Chapter master: Frederick Portier. Homeworld: Utokolong. Fortress Monastery: Ereferong. Colors: pearl white plating, garnet red for captains, and black under armor. Chapter badge: a garnet red crescent with a smaller garnet red crescent inside of it. Allegiance: loyalist, of course. Codex compliance: indeterminate. Preferred tactics: vehicles. Mutations: defective osmundula, enhanced progenoids. This is, in essence, the outline of the chapter, and this is where I officially notarize this document and finalize it on behalf of the Inquisition. May the next chapter be as cooperative as the Crimson Moons appeared to be. End of log entry.
Hey guys, it's Asmogan here, and this is just this part's going to be a little bit more off the cuff of my head, so if there's some stuttering or some hesitation, I apologize in advance. But I decided to include a segment in these homebrew highlights where I kind of just share my personal thoughts on the homebrew highlights that are submitted, and in the case of the Crimson Moons, just to go over some of the basic facts. When this was first submitted and I saw the name, I'm not going to lie, my first thought was, okay, is this going to be derivative off of my chapter, the Crimson Crusaders? But then as I ran through, I really saw how much they were nothing alike. So it was just a coincidence, and it was kind of a funny one to see initially, but I did like it. Additionally, with the first video I did on the homebrew highlight of this, it did feel kind of shitty to leave out a lot of these details. I decided for that one to go primarily off of the initial Google, form that I have everybody do for these. I decided to go primarily off of that as opposed to the official document that Vadan had put out in large detail. And I apologize for that. My thought process was, keep it short, quick, and snappy and to the point, and that people would prefer that from a content creator like myself. But hopefully we'll see a better response to a lot more detail. It's still pretty quick. I find that just inherently when I'm recording these videos, because of my habits with the In the Nutshell series to talk really quickly and effectively and efficiently and just try and get as many words in as possible in every second in the scripts I write, I find that as I'm recording the homebrew highlights, I'm also quickly reading it off in the same manner, really quickly, really rapidly. But hopefully this time around, though, with all the details that are included still, despite how fast I'm rattling it all off, it'll come across as a good iteration of the homebrew highlight format. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put footage in the background of me drawing anything. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that for the other chapters as well. It's just that in particular is what I won't be able to do week to week, because that in itself just takes way too much time. So if you guys see some white scars, like artwork in the background and stuff like that, and then just a still image of this chapter's image, that I apologize that I can't include anything more advanced or more cool than that. It's just I just don't have the time to draw, color, and highlight, and just do all the stuff I think the bare minimum should be done to bring these chapters to life on the forms I made. So hopefully people who make these chapters will be inclined to do that themselves. Maybe not record the footage of it, but at the very least produce their own chapter forms like I have up on the Discord. But I don't know. Maybe I'll find a way to do that in a streamlined fashion. Maybe just do really simple color blocking as opposed to nice shading or any kind of intricate details. But as of right now, it's just not possible. But back to my thoughts on the Crimson Moons. I like a lot of the details about this chapter. Them being sons of Perturabo I thought was interesting. Unfortunately, it does come to mind that it wasn't a decision made by Vadan. A lot of the decisions for the chapter, he played that role. I think it's on 1D4chan or something like that, but apparently there's a game on one of those where you just roll for certain details about your chapter. So you just, you roll and you get a random answer. So he rolled a 78 on there and got Perturabo. So I like the creativity to work around that, though, and to work with Perturabo being the progenitor. It's still strange for me, though, because I don't know what that process is like, though, to have all those parameters set for you and then having to write around them. I don't know, that I think that would be harder to do than what I did with the Crimson Crusaders, which I wrote all of it from the get-go. I just filled out all the details myself, and I thought they all fit together. It was a very corely my idea from the get-go. To have a prompt set for you, though, with that role game on 1D4chan, I don't know what that would be like. That sounds like it'd be stressful, or at the very least annoying. Because what if you got a Primarch you absolutely hate? Oh my god! For example, let's say you got Lorgar. If you got Lorgar, fuck that, man. I wouldn't be able to make a successor chapter for Lorgar that I could even possibly like. let alone fucking Gulliman. But all in all, I do like this, the Crimson Moons. I do like the story that Vaden laid out. It's actually pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I thought they seemed a little pure for Grimdark at first, but you know, I kind of see their Grimdark edge. But at first, you know, he kind of had me. I was like, yeah, they sound a little too good to be true. I mean, they seem to care about humans, but then, you know, it's clarified that it's not from an altruistic point of view. It's from more of just a code of honor prospect. It's just an oath they take. They don't necessarily morally believe in protecting humans to the core of their being, but they do encourage it within the society of their chapter. So I find that pretty fascinating. All in all, though, those are the simplistic thoughts. As I do really enjoy this homebrew. It's pretty interesting. I'm still not sure if I pronounced some things correctly, like Frederick Potier. I'm assuming that's the correct pronunciation, but it could be Friedrich, or it could be Friedrich, or I don't know. Homeworld Uterkalung. I fucking had to look that up. I'm not gonna lie. I had no idea how to say that. And Irefrang. Again, that was a total guess with the Fortress Monastery. But other than that, I think I had a relatively streamlined process with writing this second iteration, hopefully this longer form iteration. But all in all, that's my thoughts, summed up. Yeah, I don't know where to go from there, other than to say thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this homebrew highlight of the Crimson Moons by Vadan Drumist. I hope this longer form deep dive into the chapter is much better than the previous iteration. For those that wish to submit their homebrews for highlighting, the submissions are currently closed until I can work through the current backlog thoroughly. I'll announce when I'll reopen them later. Until then, I hope all of you look forward to more homebrew highlights, and remember, for the Imperium, my brothers!